Hey guys, Jack here with Jack Flash Auto Repair, and today I'm going to be reviewing the 2024 Kawasaki Eliminator. I'm going to go over a couple things in this video, try to go over everything that I think is relevant when you are thinking about purchasing a bike like this. First thing I'm going to start with is the comfort of this bike. When I first sat on it, the first thing I noticed was how soft the seat was and how nice the rear double suspension is. Having those makes it ride completely different than if you're coming off a supermoto or a sport bike. This thing is really comfortable. One more thing I want to say about the comfort is the peg location on this thing is pretty sweet. It's really relaxed, so when you sit on this thing, you just feel like you're sitting in a recliner almost. It's really comfortable. I cannot express that enough. I can ride this bike a lot longer than a lot of the previous bikes I've owned, so that's pretty cool. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the handling of the bike. It does scrape if you get low. I have scraped the pegs on this thing more times than I can count, but it never tips over. This is actually the only bike I've ever owned that's never been laid over whatsoever, not even in a silly little accident or something. So I think that speaks something to how well it handles. So if you're buying this bike just to take some tight corners, I would maybe reconsider and look into more of like a naked bike, like a Z series or a Ninja. The handlebars themselves are pretty short, so if you're tall, you might want to get some longer bars, but I've got some pretty short arms, so they work pretty well for me. The next thing I want to talk about is the top speed on this. That's what everybody always asks when it comes to buying a new bike. How fast can it go? How fast can it go? On GPS, I've had this thing at 116 miles an hour. It is a 450cc, so I think that's pretty decent. I've got stock gearing on it, pretty much stock everything aside from a slip-on exhaust. It'll go 116. It'll hit above 100 miles an hour without a problem, but once you get to 100 miles an hour, that's about all you got, maybe like 105, 110 on an average day. 116, that's with the wind on my back, going downhill. Took me a long time to get there. On the dash, it actually said 123, but I had my GoPro on, and I trust that GPS more than I trust the wheel speed sensor. As far as the acceleration goes, this thing is actually pretty quick off the line. That was the first thing I noticed when I actually took it for a drive for the first time. I was like, wow, this thing is a little quicker than I expected it to be. I've rode a Ninja 400 before, Ninja 300, a lot of the smaller engine bikes that Kawasaki makes. And I gotta say that this one is a lot quicker than I thought it would be. It does have that acceleration if you're looking for something that can get past cars a little bit quicker and not have to worry about being the slowest rider in the group. This is also a great option. Now, if you're gonna go fast, you need to make sure that you have your braking in order. And the brakes on this, I would say they're decent. They're nothing special. They're not like top of the line, so don't go crazy. It does have some pretty big front brakes. It's got pretty decent rear brakes. There is no ABS on my model, but they do come with ABS on them if that's something that you think you might need. That'll prevent your tire from spinning. It'll prevent you from locking up your brakes. So if you're a new rider looking to get this as your first bike, an ABS model might be worth that extra couple hundred or whatever they are charging for that now. The exhaust sound on this is pretty good. It's a V-twin, so I think it has a nice clean sound. It's not very raspy, it's not very high pitched. I also do have a slip-on exhaust on here. The stock exhaust is so damn quiet. I cannot stand the sound of the stock exhaust, but that's almost any bike I bought, that's been the case. So I don't really hold that against the Eliminator. Next up is the gas mileage on this thing, and it gets about 50 miles a gallon, 50, 60 miles a gallon, I'd say, if not more. I ride this thing about as hard as it can be ridden, so it's gonna get on the lower end of the gas mileage. So if you're a easy rider, probably get up to 80 miles a gallon on this thing if you were, playing your cards right. It does have the technology in the dash to tell you exactly what your miles per gallon is, both average and instant, so you can check that out and monitor it if that's something that you are worried about. The tank, I believe, is around 2.5 gallons. I go about 100 miles before I fill up. That's usually my gas light doesn't even come on at that 100 miles. It's a pretty sleek looking gas tank. It does get scuffed pretty easy. Kind of watch out for that. The next thing I want to talk about is the technology on here. It's got a pretty decent dash, but nothing special. It does connect to your phone, but there's really nothing you can do from your phone. You can't change the map. You can't do really much besides check what your miles per gallon is. I think you can see how many hours are on your bike or something like that. That being said, it does have a lot of good features on here. It shows you your miles per gallon, like I mentioned earlier. It has a clock on it, like every bike will. It's very clear to read. It's real simple, not a lot going on, which I like because you're riding, you don't want a big distraction right there all the time. It does have a hazard switch, which is nice because a lot of these smaller bikes don't have that. It does have a hazard switch. And the light on here is very, very bright. I do not feel it lacks in any way, which is something that my previous Kawasaki motorcycles really did lack in, was their headlight. This thing is clear as day, and it's a really stylish looking front light, I think. It looks nice coming down the road. I've let my friends ride it, and I think it looks good coming down the road. The next thing I'm gonna talk about is riding with a passenger on this thing. It does great with a passenger, and the engine can hardly tell that it's got any extra weight on it, but passenger comfort is not high on this thing. This rear seat is hard as a rock, which really surprised me because I mentioned how soft this front seat was earlier. That rear seat is incredibly hard. So if you're buying it to ride with a passenger, which is one of the reasons I bought it, you're gonna wanna consider upgrading your rear seat. I have not done that yet, but I am gonna get with an upholstery shop soon so I can replace my pad. It's not unrideable with a passenger, but I would definitely consider upgrading that if you wanna ride with a passenger on a regular basis. The passenger pegs, again, in a nice location. She finds a lot of comfort in the position that she gets to sit in compared to on a sport bike or on a supermoto. It's just the quality of the seat that brings the discomfort, but the actual position itself is better. Next up, I'm gonna talk about aftermarket support. When it comes to aftermarket support with this bike, it is a pretty new bike. They just started remaking the Eliminator this year in 2024. Before then, it hadn't been made for quite some time, and it was a 1200 back when it was made, so it was a lot different of a bike. There are aftermarket companies out there that are making parts for it. A lot of them are overseas in Japan, so you'll have to order parts from them and wait for shipping. Or you can find some parts that are for a similar bike that often do fit on here. For example, my slip-on exhaust is from a Rebel 500. It's not for an Eliminator, but it fits just fine. There's a lot of generic fit parts that do fit a cruiser like this, but you might want to do some research and make sure that you are getting the parts that you know are going to fit your bike. The last thing I'm going to talk about on this bike is its style. I think stylistically, this bike is really beautiful. I really enjoy how it looks. I get a lot of compliments on it. I get a lot of compliments on the color. People always ask me what it is because there's not very many Kawasaki logos on here. It's really just right here that there is a Kawasaki logo on the back. A lot of people think that this is a Rebel 500 or something similar to that. Overall, I really think this is a great bike. I think if you are just looking to get into riding, that this is a good option for a starter bike that isn't super slow, like a Grom. I know some people that really turns them off, only being able to go 50 or 60 miles an hour. This thing will go a little faster than that, but it won't get you in too much trouble. It's really comfortable, it's easy to handle. That's it for this video. I'm going to be reviewing my 2022 KLX 300 SM next, so if you like this review, go give that one a watch. Thanks. What's that?
Did you get your new ride?
Oh, I've had that one for a while. Since, yeah, just a year actually. I was making a video about it right now. I've had it for a year, kind of giving it a review. It's only $450, I like it.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Good looking bike.
Thanks, man, yeah. That was my neighbor stopping to compliment my bike, so that was pretty sweet. Love that.